Today we're looking at the COUNTIF function in Microsoft Excel. So let's go ahead and jump right in. So we're going to double click into a cell and start our function with equals COUNTIF and then that opening parentheses. Then we can see we have two arguments here. The first is range, and so this is going to be the column that we'll reference. So for example, we can pick this salesperson column here, and then comma, and then our criteria is going to be what we want to count in here. And so we could count John, for example. And since that's text, we're going to do a double quote and then type in John. And then we can close that out and we can see that John has 9 sales in this table. So instead of typing this John in here, we could reference our cell here and close that out, hit enter, and then we could pick a name from our dropdown here. See that John has 9 sales. We could also switch this to see how many items there were. So we can pick items here. And we can check t-shirt. And so we can see that there's 6 logged lines with t-shirt on them. And so we can do a combo. So to do this combo, we're going to slightly modify our function here from COUNTIF to COUNTIFs. So COUNTIF can only have one criteria. COUNTIFs can have multiple, but other than that, they work exactly the same. And so in this case, we can select our first column like this, and then we can select that cell. And then now we can simply add another comma and do another criteria range. And so we can pick this item here, and we can reference that cell. And now we can pick a name and an item and see how many items there are that match that description. And so in this case, we have 3 rows matching the name John and the item t-shirt using the COUNTIFs formula. Another thing we can do here is we can match a number. So let's go back to our original COUNTIF formula. And then we can check our quantity column. And we can see how many orders were logged with a quantity of 53. So we can see that we only have one order with the quantity of 53. And so if we update this to 56, you can see that there are 2 orders with 56. Right there and right there. So that is how you compare numbers. And if you notice, numbers do not need the double quotes surrounding, whereas text does. Next, let's look in or. So if we want t-shirt or polo shirt. And so let's go ahead and pick our item column here. And then the way we can pick an or is using an array. So that is a left curly brace. And then we'll do t-shirt inside of a string, just like we do text, comma, polo shirt inside of a string. And then we'll do another right curly brace, and then we'll close this. So we're going to have to do one more thing, but I'm going to show you what happens when we do it like this. You can see we have 6 and 6. So it is putting them in 2 separate cells. And so to combine this, we need to put a sum function in front of our COUNTIF and wrap it inside that sum. So once we do that, those 6 and 6 that were in separate cells get merged into 1. And so now we can check to see for t-shirt or polo shirt in our item column. All right, so let's go ahead and move on. Let's see what it looks like to do a search. So let's say we want to count how many of these contain the word shirt. So if you look, it should be all of them. So if we type in shirt, for example, here, and then if we do a COUNTIF and select this, if we just put this cell here, it winds up with 0. So natively it's not searching, it's trying to find an exact match. And so if we add, for example, T dash here, you can see now it finds 6. We want to find a way to match. And so what we're going to do is add a wildcard. And so there's a couple different ways we can do this. So let's say we want to match anything with 2 letters or a space and a letter in front of the shirt, we can use this question mark. And so we're going to add that inside of a double quotes, and then we're going to use an ampersand to join that. Then inside of our double quotes, we're going to use a question mark. So question mark is a specific wildcard, so it gives us one character, any character, but we need two. So we're going to go ahead and add two of those question marks. And you can see now that we wind up with 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So it's giving us 2 wild characters in front of shirt. But if we wanted to count all of these, then we don't want to add more question marks. We want to be able to note that we want any number of characters. So if we add a asterisk instead of question marks, now you can see we wind up with 18. And so now it's searching for everything with shirt and anything before. So one thing to note is if we added one of these to long sleeve, it turns to 17. And the reason being, this asterisk is only before the shirt. And so it's only matching anything with something before the shirt, but not after. So if we want to match before and after, we would need to add another ampersand, double quote, asterisk, double quote. And now we're back to matching everything. And so this is searching for a shirt anywhere in these items. All right, next let's look at what it looks like to look at dates. And so for dates, let's go ahead and open a COUNTIF. And so first, let's do a direct match. And so if we just search this date column here, and if we just pick our date in this cell, we'll show a result of 6. So that's counting these dates here and matching it to this. Now, if we try to put this in this cell, if we do 1/1/2024, we'll end up with 0. So what we need to do, if we want to put the date directly inside the formula, is use a date formula, and then we would do 2024, 1 and 1. And now if we close it, you can see it has that result. So text you have to wrap in double quotes, a number you can put in directly, and dates you have to put inside the date function if you're not referencing a cell. Now if we want to use a start and an end date, so for example, if we want to count all the sales in January and February, we could do a start and an end date. And so if we go back to our formula, we could change this to a COUNTIFs again, if you remember, for multiple criteria. And so we'll select our date column first. And then to do a comparative, so greater than or less than, we're going to use our double quotes again. And in this case, we'll do greater than or equals to, and then finish up our double quotes, ampersand, and then that cell. And so if we close it for now, you can see it returns 18, which is the total number of rows that we have. So we want to restrict it by the end date. And so what we need to do inside of our formula is do this column again, and then do less than or equals to our end date. And so we can go ahead and copy this, add a comma, paste it back. And now you can see we just need to change our end reference to K, and then the greater than to less than. And so now we're showing greater than or equals to J12 and less than or equals to K12. And that gives us our 12 result, which is the number of rows we have for January and February. So to wrap this up, let's go ahead and look at greater or less than quantities. So we're going to take a look at how many sales were logged with greater than or equals to 20 and less than or equals to 40. So we're going to use the COUNTIFs again because we're doing more than one criteria. And so let's pick this quantity column. And then we're going to do, if we're going to do in the cell, we do the greater than or equals to 20. You can see there we have 18. And so we have this 20 inside the double quotes, but it's because we're using this greater than or equals to. Now, if we want to reference this cell, instead of having the number in there, if we could do ampersand and then pick that cell, and you can see it still returns the same result. Now, if we change this, for example, it's going to modify that number. So again, to add our second condition, we can simply take the same range there, copy it, and then all we got to do is modify this to less than or equals to, and then modify our comparative cell, which would be K15. So now we can see we have 11 between 20 and 40. So if we go to 0 and maybe 100, you can see we get to 18. And then as we increase this, that number drops as we narrow our spectrum. All right, so one thing to note before we sign off today is that if you have multiple criteria, make sure you have same number of rows selected. So in this case, I'm referencing the same one. And so I'm starting in 4 and ending in 21, starting in 4 and ending in 21. If you do not have the same, then you'll wind up with an error. So if we change to 22, you can see we have an error because we do not have the same number of rows. This will also happen if you have more than one column as well. So if we make sure we have the right number of rows and columns, then we'll return the result correctly. That is it today for the COUNTIF function in Microsoft Excel. Make sure to download the coefficient add-on so that way you can sync your data live to your Excel sheet, and then you'll be able to have up-to-date results when you are using these functions in Microsoft Excel.